Good afternoon, and welcome back to the Poe Museum. If you've been following the Curator's Crypt lately, you might have noticed that my videos are a little bit less frequent these days. And that's because we at the Poe Museum have been involved in a major reinstallation project. And I'm going to give you a little preview of the work we've done so far. And in some of the previous videos, you might have noticed I'm staying in a room that's used for storing furniture. I'm going to show you that room right now as you've never seen it before. Let's take a look. When our guests enter the first building here, they're going to be confronted with this recreation of Poe's childhood bedroom, which includes, of course, little Eddie's childhood bed, the very place he used to dream dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. Right there. The room is furnished with pieces from either Poe's childhood home, including furniture there, the chair, the table, but also his sister's childhood home, things like the secretary over there or the paintings, the other artworks. The mantle here is from Poe's childhood bedroom, so he brought it down here and made it part of the display. So this is where our guests are really going to be acquainted with little Edgar and how his time in Richmond began when he was orphaned here a month before his 3rd birthday, how he grew up at the Allens, and how he loved cats. This is one of my favorite features of the new bedroom is we have a little replica of his childhood pet, Tib the cat. But wait, there's more. Right beyond this door. Thanks to the addition of several new custom-built cases, we have more room to display objects that have never been on display before. Things like a rare document signed by Poe's grandfather, one of only a few that still survive, dancing shoes from the Poe family, a whole case here devoted to Poe's sister's family, and of course, lots and lots of stuff from the Allen house, where Poe grew up. And of course, lots of furniture from Poe's childhood homes. Lots of chairs, tables, paintings, other artworks. A lot of things that have been in storage for years are now back on display. And they'll help bring you just a little bit closer to the world that Poe knew. But what would he be without his poetry? Right back here. There's more display space than ever devoted to his early poems. And this is going to be a changing selection because you can't leave things out in the light too long. And even these lights are on motion sensors, so they're only going to turn on when people are in the room. But we've got things like his early books of poetry, his early manuscripts. This happens to be his notes on Milton. And down there, that's the only known manuscript for To Helen, one of his great early masterpieces. And what's the poetry without its inspiration? We've got a shelf here devoted to his first fiancée, Elmira Royster. And she's going to play a major part in our exhibits because she appears not only at the beginning of the story, but also at the end. Spoiler alert. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We've got to check out the next building, which promises to be twice as melancholy as before. Try to recall what the Poe Museum's Elizabeth Arnold Poe Memorial Building looked like the last time you visited. Let's take a look at it now. Here it is. Freshly painted, wallpapered, reinstalled with more Poe for the dough than ever before. We've got sculptures, first editions, manuscripts, letters, and of course, more furniture. But check out some of our stars of the show here. Well, here it is. Look at that little gold pocket watch right there. Remember the lines from The Telltale Heart? Now a new sound came up on my ears. It was a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes enveloped in cotton. I knew it well. That was the beating of the old man's heart. Well, this is the watch that Poe owned when he wrote that story. This is a sound that was ticking away in his pocket while he was writing that line. And right next to it there, over on the left, that's Poe's penknife. And I like to imagine that's not the penknife he owned when he wrote the line, the black cat, about plucking out his cat's eyeball with a penknife. Hopefully that had nothing to do with it. And right down there is his little nail file. Some of these precious Poe pieces are displayed with little magnifying glasses so you can get a better look, because the knife and the watch are both engraved with Poe's name. They're some of his prized possessions. In fact, the watch in his time probably would have been worth about $150 at a time when he was paying about $100 a year for rent. And the knife over there, he gave that to somebody in exchange for a loan shortly before he died. So these were valuable pieces, some of his most prized possessions, and they're here right now and you get right up close to them. But just don't touch the glass because you get fingerprints on it. But let's look at something a little bit bigger right over there. Well, here's a riddle for you. Who's got two thumbs, is made of plaster, and just got repaired and put back on display? This guy. If you visited in the past several months, you might have noticed he was missing an arm. We took it off because his thumb was broken off. He was missing a big chunk of his thumb. So when we decided that we're going to have to take him apart anyway to move him over here, we figured we might as well repair his thumb before he went back on display and reattach everything. It's stronger than ever before. You still shouldn't touch it. You shouldn't touch any of these things. But yeah, he's got his thumb back. And by the way, this is the plaster model for the statue of Poe that now stands over the Virginia State Capitol, which is about 10 blocks that way. It's just one of the many Poe sculptures that we're going to be able to display now that we've rearranged the galleries. This is the one that was sculpted by Edmund Thomas Quinn in 1908 for Poe's centennial in 1909. And it was cast in bronze. The bronze is still up in the Bronx, but the plaster came down here. And he's actually internationally famous. He's probably more famous now than the bronze version, because in 1987, he was sitting out there in the Poe shrine in our garden, and somebody abducted him. He was missing for days, and the director of the museum put out a call to the media, says, "We don't care who you are, we won't press charges as long as you return our precious Poe bust unharmed." And then at the stroke of midnight, he got the ransom call. Somebody woke him up and said, "I know where your bust of Poe is, and I'll only tell you if you read me his poem, The Spirits of the Dead, over the phone." So of course the director read the poem, and the voice on the phone says, "It's the Raven Inn," and hung up. And sure enough, way down on Route 1 towards Petersburg, Virginia, there was a bar called the Raven Inn. And some guy dressed up in a cowboy hat and long blonde hair carried this 80-pound bust of Poe into the bar with him and said, "I met my friend out here in the alley. He's kind of thirsty like a drink." And yeah, he set him up on the bar and had a beer with him. And then he disappeared. So he's still out there somewhere. Or he's dead. I think he might be dead now. That's at least the rumor I've heard. But nobody's confessed. But wait, there's more. Right over there. Poe's chair right here is just one of the pieces we have from his office at the Southern Literary Messenger, the magazine, right here in Richmond, 5 blocks down the street where he began his career in journalism. But this is just the start of it. We have desks, we have copies of the Messenger from 1835 up there, a portrait of his boss, a receipt for one of his contributions to the magazine, and of course, a lock of hair from his boss's daughter. Because why not? It's the Poe Museum. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's plenty more things to see, including our Mona Lisa over here. It's the 1848 Ultima Thule daguerreotype, one of 4 original copies that still survive, or that we know about. It's really the iconic image that spawned 1,000 internet memes. It's on book covers, t-shirts, socks, boxer shorts. This image is everywhere. It's the best known, but perhaps the worst likeness of Poe ever made. And you'll have to come here and find out the whole story behind it. And that's just the beginning. And we're not even finished yet. We've got one more building to reinstall and reinterpret, and it's going to be the most melancholy room of all, the death room. So check back to find out what we do with that one. And until next time, thanks for all your support. And if you'd like to help preserve precious Poe pieces like this daguerreotype, or Poe's chair, or the lock of his boss's daughter's hair, why not support the Poe Museum or become a member at poemuseum.org. And until next time, thanks for joining us, and I leave you with more gratuitous footage of the Poe Museum cats doing Poe Museum cat stuff.